To call it a busy week in FPL would be an understatement, so let's try and get our teams ready ahead of the deadline for game week 27. Hey everyone, Sam here, otherwise known as FPL Pricey, and today we're going to get set up ahead of game week 27. Just a very quick confirmation, I've already talked about it in my chip strategy video yesterday, so if you want to go check that out at length, then do go and have a look at my last video where I talk all about the different chip strategies that are best for our teams ahead of game week 27 and through all the way to the end of the season. In the meantime, though, let's take a quick look at the doubles and the blanks that are coming, because that will inform the transfers I want to make in the next couple of game weeks. So Bournemouth and Luton obviously double in game week 28, won't need to go into that too much. And we already knew 6 of the 8 teams that will have a confirmed fixture in game week 29. The 2 others that dropped in are Luton and Nottingham Forest. So that means we've got 8 teams that don't blank in game week 29. They're all on screen now. So if you want to just pause the video, if you don't know it already, take a look at those. Those are the teams that we can rely on in game week 29, unless, of course, you want to use a free hit. So let's have a quick look at my game week 26 team performance. 59 points was enough for another pretty decent green arrow. It wasn't exactly blockbuster, and I am looking for that one standout game week to really help propel me towards 100k and hopefully beyond as we enter the back few game weeks and, importantly, chip season. Taking a quick look at my team, one of the major issues I'm going to discuss today is, of course, Estupiñán, who yet again came off the bench for 1 point. Outside of that, Ake was the only one in defence to get me any sort of points, 6 for him. And in midfield, Foden with the goal and 3 bonus was obviously very welcome indeed. Saka, who was a secondary captaincy option getting 10 points, was maybe ever so slightly frustrating because he was a vice captain for me and I was tempted. But realistically speaking, I was always going to be going on Erling Haaland. Only the assist for him, but a lot of XG went uncashed in that game week. And as we saw midweek, we know that he's got his shooting boots on now, 5 goals against Luton, and I fully expect him to continue that run of form now that he's finally sort of got a hot streak finding the back of the net. So outside of that, Ollie Watkins was the only other player who returned for me, 9 points for him. Hwang Hee-chan, obviously very, very frustrating. I now wish, of course, that I didn't go there, but we didn't know that he'd get injured in the cup midweek either. So I'll discuss that later. I'll need to have transfer plans for that as well. So taking a look at the captaincy matrix ahead of game week 27, and no prizes for guessing who the most popular captaincy pick is going to be amongst all of FPL this week. It will be Erling Haaland, almost undoubtedly. He's obviously previously done very well against Man United, scoring a hat-trick famously in his first season. And across the week, he's kind of just reminded the community just how potent he can be. 5 goals against Luton in not even the full match either. He got taken off early, and that's not the first time this has happened. He's only been at Man City for 2 seasons. He scored 5 goals and been taken off early twice already. So this guy knows what he's doing in front of goal. Whether or not we maybe lost a little bit of faith in him recently, or possibly underestimated him coming back from injury, I think he's just proven to any doubters that he is still the player that we trusted so heavily earlier on this season and last season as well. So there's no doubt in my mind that he is a fantastic captaincy option against a team that could be quite open to the way Man City play. I can see Man City really taking advantage of Man United's backline. They tend to get their defensive midfielders caught out of position fairly regularly. If Erling Haaland starts alongside the likes of either Kevin De Bruyne or Phil Foden, you'd imagine they've got the quality to pick them apart on any sort of counterattacks or fast breaks that Man City might have. So I do think that Erling Haaland is the favourite captaincy option this game week. Also, on the topic of Arsenal blowing teams away, I think that almost plays into Man City's mentality now. So Man City historically have been using this period in the season to shut games down at 1-0, 2-0, maybe not go for the kill too much and conserve some energy. So you'll see quite a lot of 1-0s, maybe 2-1s, 3-1s at absolute most for Man City around this period in the season in years gone past, and as we've seen in recent game weeks. However, because of what Arsenal have been doing recently, Arsenal's goal difference is now really challenging and actually beating Man City's, and will continue to do so if Arsenal were to keep this sort of form up. Man City will be conscious of that, and so will Pep Guardiola. And I can see in the next few game weeks, Man City may be releasing the handbrake a little bit and saying, look, we need to make sure that the goal differences in our favour come the back few games because we don't want to risk anything when going for the league. With that in mind, I can see Erling Haaland lasting longer on the pitch, even when they're 2 or 3 up. And I can also see Man City taking initiative and trying to blow teams away where the opportunity presents itself. With that in mind, I think that's just another reason that slightly sways me towards Erling Haaland as the captaincy option this game week. His goal involvement percentage is also very impressive, and the way Man City set up attacks, you'd ideally expect Haaland to be at the end of the majority of the chances they create. Whereas with likes of Saka away at Sheffield United, I'm sure they will blow them away. It could be 4-5-0 quite comfortably. That wouldn't surprise me whatsoever. But Arsenal have a lot of different routes to goal, and Saka isn't the only player that could haul in that 11. Whilst he is a very good option, fantastic underlying data, he's on the majority of penalties as well, and obviously in sensational form. And he is obviously going to be a very good option for captaincy this game week in his own right. I think the fact that Erling Haaland is more likely to be at the forefront of everything Man City do, whereas Saka can at times be slightly more peripheral or not necessarily the talismanic figure in Arsenal. They can mix up the way they attack and use different avenues to score their goals more often. I think that's just another reason that maybe edges me towards Erling Haaland. Outside of that, the two that I just want to briefly mention, I don't want to spend too long in this section, but Ollie Watkins, 29 attacking returns this season in just 26 matches. 170 points is the top scoring FPL asset so far this year. He has gone seriously under the radar pretty much all year long as a captaincy shout. And yet again, Luton away from home could be a fantastic opportunity to bag a haul from Ollie Watkins. However, because of the underlying data in comparison to the other two we've already mentioned, and also because he's not on penalties, it's just always going to give me a reason to doubt him that slight bit more over the likes of Erling Haaland or Bukayo Saka. The data's still fantastic. The fixture is great as well. So if you wanted to take a chance, then Ollie Watkins could be your man. But I'm personally not quite brave enough, and I think it's more likely that the big haul comes from either Saka or Haaland this game week. Finally, Son Heung-min, in his own right, could be a really good captaincy option, especially if Richarlison isn't fit for game week 27. If that is the case, if he plays up front in that centre-forward role, his data is phenomenal. He will be on penalties as well, and all the chances Spurs create do tend to fall to that centre-forward. And Son has proven how potent he can be in that position in this system for Postecoglou. So again, if you wanted a really differential shout, because he is pretty low owned considering how explosive he can be, then Son could be an option to consider ahead of the other three. However, for what it's worth, Haaland is my clear favourite at this point this week. Saka's my second, and actually it probably drops down 1, 2, 3, 4 in the order of this captaincy matrix. So today I'm going to flip it on its head a little bit, and I'm going to start with my sell list ahead of game week 27 rather than having a look at my transfer targets, because I think the players that I want to sell will help to inform who my priority buys are. So my team, Hwang Hee-chan, unfortunately, is going to be a priority sell. I was planning on having him for the next 2 game weeks, as well as obviously game week 26 when I bought him for, because I really did fancy that Newcastle fixture. I thought that they could exploit Newcastle's very poor defensive record, and then Fulham in game week 28 as well seemed pretty decent. However, it looks like he's got a bit of a hamstring injury. After the match, the quotes were that he would be very surprised, O'Neill that is, if Hwang Hee-chan played at the weekend. I think that means that he is going to be my make weight for a midfield transfer this game week. And because I've got 6.9 million in the bank, I can pretty much get to everyone I could ever dream of, maybe barring Salah. But we don't know about Salah's fitness at the moment. So I think at the moment, Hwang Hee-chan to another midfielder seems like a pretty good option. Under that, Estupiñán is another priority sell. Until Hwang got injured, he was going to be the priority sell this game week. But again, he keeps giving me 1 or 2 reasons to keep him in my team. And this week's reason is that Lamptey has gone down with a slight, I think it's hamstring injury as well. We hear that it's a tweak, nothing too major. But if that keeps him out of game week 27, then Estupiñán could be in line for a start. However, we've seen Lamptey go off at half-time recently, and Estupiñán was not the player that subbed on for him. So it's far from a guarantee that Estupiñán is going to be guaranteed minutes, even if Lamptey is injured this week. So despite all of that information, I'm still pretty keen on selling him as soon as possible, as soon as I get the chance, basically. Outside of that, Pedro Porro also hasn't been seen in training so far this week. I'm still potentially holding on to him if I want to save the free hit for game week 29, because I think he'll be back by then. And obviously Spurs have a fixture that week. But if he's not back for this game week, and I'm not looking at avoiding the free hit in 29, if I am going to play the free hit in 29, which is one of the two strategies I'm eyeing up, then Porro is a pretty easy sell, because I'm not holding him for that game week where not many players play and he does. And if he's still not in training at the moment, which seems very much the case as of today, he is another player that I should probably be looking at getting rid of pretty soon. However, I think Estupiñán is a player that I more desperately want to get rid of at this point. Despite Porro's injury, if I'm avoiding the free hit, I think he'll come good in game week 29. Under that, Matt Turner as well. If I was looking at bolstering the goalkeepers, he's lost his place, of course. If I wanted to go for someone like Neto in goal at Bournemouth or Kaminsky for that double game week next week, then Matt Turner would probably be the make way. After that, Nathan Ake as well. The fixtures turn pretty much now. I think Man United at home is about a 43% chance of a clean sheet, so maybe I don't need to rush the transfer. But certainly next week, I'll be looking at getting rid of him for one of the double game weekers. So taking a look at my top transfer targets, obviously with Hwang being one of the priority sells this week, bringing in a midfielder, especially one that potentially will be playing in game week 29 if I were to avoid the free hit, could be pretty important. And I think regardless of my chip strategy, Son Heung-min ticks a lot of boxes. He's obviously got fantastic underlying data, he's on penalties, and in a prolific Spurs side creating a lot of chances at the moment. So all of those go in his favour. Now, there's also a rumour circling at the moment that Richarlison might be struggling with an injury this week. It's unconfirmed at this point. Definitely wait for Postecoglou's press conference because he's pretty upfront with his injury list. But if it is the case that Richarlison is injured, I think it's very likely that Son moves back to an upfront position, centre forward, where his data increases exponentially. He's almost doubling his data in the centre forward role as he is to left wing in terms of the XG per 90. So with that in mind, I think he is a fantastic transfer this week, even if you're not worried about free hitting in game week 29. Even if you're thinking you're going to free hit that week, then I still think the fixture list for Spurs over the next 3 or 4, disregarding 29, is good enough, and Son is explosive enough as a player that whether or not it's chip strategy dependent, I think he comes in as a priority transfer for me anyway. Outside of that, you look at number 3 on the list. That's the other midfielder I'm looking at the moment. That's Jarrod Bowen. If we hear anything negative about Son Heung-min, or if I wanted to save the funds and I also wanted to save the free hit in game week 29, Bowen would probably be my next in line after Son. So for example, if we get really negative news on both Solanke and on Hwang, then there is an outside chance that I get rid of both Garnacho and Hwang and bring in Bowen and Son Heung-min, giving me 7 strong attackers. Solanke can move to the bench for a game week. However, that's kind of on the peripheral of my mind at the moment because I think that's fairly unlikely. Moving into the defenders, Gabriel and Senesi and Doughty are the 3 defenders on my mind at the moment. Now, Senesi and Doughty are fairly obvious. It's because they've got double game week 28 to contest with. Doughty also plays in game week 29, so if I wanted to avoid the free hit, then he's another good idea to be bringing in pretty soon and with good attacking upside. And Senesi has a great fixture this week, whereas Luton against Aston Villa probably not the best for a clean sheet. Senesi playing Burnley this week could be a really good hopping on point. However, he's coming in at 4th on my transfer targets, not as high as 2nd like Gabriel is, because he's on 8 yellow cards at the moment. If he were to get a yellow card against Burnley, then he is at risk of missing half of his double game week in game week 28 if he got a yellow card in the first of those 2 fixtures. That would be disastrous if you're bringing in a double game week defender. And obviously, he also then doesn't play in game week 29 either. So it doesn't really help me if I'm trying to avoid the free hit. Now, Gabriel doesn't tick either of those boxes. He doesn't help me avoid the free hit in game week 29. And if I was to bring him in, then it would obviously have to be for a hit because I've only got one free transfer. However, I think there are plenty of benefits for a player like Gabriel because he is in the best defence in the league by some margin at the moment. Arsenal have been very tight at the back recently and doubling up in defence, even without a double game week on the horizon and even without that fixture in 29, I think could still be a very prudent move, especially when the player I'm getting rid of is a Stupinan, who I've got no confidence in the minutes of. So finally, taking a look at my team ahead of game week 27, and I'm imagining for the moment that I lock in the transfer for Hwang to Son Heung-min. That would give me a pretty strong looking starting 11 with no free transfers left, although it would be 2.8 million in the bank if I wanted any wiggle room to bring in another asset, and probably looking at my side, a defender would be the most likely player to bring in. Now, there is a risk on Solanke. We will find out more in the press conferences on Friday. So if he ends up being a really hard doubt for game week 27, then I might need to maneuver something in my midfield and probably just bench him for this game week. However, I'm hoping he's fit. If he is fit, then I'm pretty happy with this front seven. And it would be the defence where I'd have some question marks. So Porro is obviously a doubt. We don't know if he's going to train at all before the deadline. It doesn't look like he is training at the moment, as I discussed earlier on in the video. And if it looks pretty risky for him to start, then the player coming off my bench as it stands would be a Stupinan away at Fulham. Great fixture, obviously, and if he starts, then that would be absolutely fine. So I will hold off until last minute to make any sort of additional moves. However, at present, I think Gabriel would be my most likely transfer in for a Stupinan, and obviously I'd upgrade Gabriel to my starting 11 ahead of Pedro Porro. Now, with that in mind, I was tempted to also bench Ake, but I think considering the clean sheet odds being up near 50%, which I was pretty shocked about, but it's pretty high for Man City at home to Man United. They are missing Højlund as well, so that's one less attacker for City to worry about. I don't mind starting Ake. It's not ideal, but I'm pretty happy and content with that. So if I was to start with double Arsenal defence, if I brought in Gabriel, then overall, I think I'm really happy with this starting 11, although it would, of course, be for a -4 and probably taking me ever closer to the path that locks me into a free hit in game week 29. As always, please do remember to leave any questions you've got ahead of the deadline in the comment section below. I'll try and get back to all of you before the game week 27 deadline. And if you've stuck around this long, please remember to leave a like and subscribe to the channel as I chase down 1,000 subscribers before the end of the season.